So I'd like to now introduce our superbly qualified speakers, our panelists, if you will, for the discussion. I'd like to start with Shakti Goel. Hi, Shakti. Hopefully you can see us, and if you can wave, for joining. Shakti, there seems to be some background noise. If you turn on the audio, can we just make a quick check on that? Do that.
Okay.
Okay. So Shakti, thanks for joining again. Shakti Goel is a chief data and analytics officer of a company called TEK Travels. Many people may not have heard of this because of the way that it's the largest B2B travel company in India with presence more than in 100 plus countries, 110 plus countries, right? So it's a pretty large company and uses extensively data and data science and models to be able to predict several things. And maybe Shakti will give us some examples of what they use to predict this for. That Shakti is also a chief technology officer of a banking division in HCL Infosystems. He's also CTO of Akash Digital. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Akash Digital. Shakti is a PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sorry, I should have called you Dr. Shakti. So I'll refer you that way from now on. And by the way, a couple of things that I think you and I have in common. Brian Greene is also my favorite scientist and speaker and author. I think the way he translates complex concepts and simplifies it for everybody is something that as a product managers, as leaders, we all need to learn, including, of course, another Neil deGrasse Tyson is another favorite of mine. I also hear that you're a foodie, Shakti, and you're doing some experiments. I'd love to hear a couple of them from you, what cuisine and what kind of thing. There is a lot of background noise. I think I don't know if it's a fan that is circulating or. So tell us a little bit about, before I go to the other panelists, just quickly tell us a little bit about the company, the travel boutique, online B2B travel company. And also it'll be good if you can, tell us how you spend your day as a chief data officer, right? I think that's something that is mystery to several folks. So I'm going to ask this to pretty much every one of you to help us understand how does your day go, typical day go.
Okay, Satish, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you and your team to invite me to such a great conference. The company I work for, the name of the company is Tech Travels, and the brand name that it goes by, there are several. One is Travel Boutique Online, and the second one is TBO Holidays. Travel Boutique Online is the largest B2B travel company in India, and TBO Holidays is getting there in the international scenario. So we consider Expedia to be our competitor. The company has sales of around like $2 billion a year, and there are employees in over 110 countries. Given that, as far as your second question is concerned, what does a typical day in the life of a CDO, Chief Data Officer, look like? So in my case, the day starts by looking at all the data reports. I want to ensure that data is consistent across the entire organization, across all the applications, and there are no data referential integrity issues. Then I also want to make sure that, look, we have built an enterprise-wide warehouse. Why did we do that? Because we want to provide information right then and there. The information should be available on your fingertips, and it should not take more than a few minutes to provide that information to the business stakeholders. So have all the ad hoc requests from the previous day been answered. Then all the projects that take feed from this centralized data warehouse. See, the role of a CDO is to provide a uniform integrated view of the entire organization to everyone at all levels of the organization. So I want to make sure that if there are any applications that are taking the feed from the warehouse, then the answers they're getting, the data they're getting is clean and it's consistent across. During the course of the day, I meet a lot of vendors. There are a lot of vendors now in the machine learning space, and they have such brilliant ideas, so I love meeting them. The other thing is, irrespective of whether I have need for resources or not, 3 to 4 days of the week would go in interviewing candidates. I like to interview at least one candidate every day, and then build a pool of qualified resources. So I mean, like, if I'm looking for a SQL engineer, I'm not looking for someone who can write SQL, but who can convert SQL in terms of stack theory and in terms of Venn diagrams. So the person should have insight into data. Then I regularly work with the other CXOs and then ensure that the data strategy is in line with the business strategies. And there are long-term projects that we have initiated. For example, Hadoop is one of the ambitious projects. So just imagine the nature of a business. If you do one search, let's say looking for a hotel in Paris, the search will return around 200 hotels. Each hotel will have around 10 rooms, so that's around 2,000 data points. And when you look at these rooms, there are rooms with breakfast, without breakfast, things like that. And then you have more than 100 suppliers providing all this information. So one search can result into 1 million JSON or XML objects. Just imagine the volume of data and the velocity that it comes at you. So how do you handle this? How do you process this? These are the long-term projects that we think about and we work on. And data monetization is key to me. I see data as corporate currency. It's money, right? Now, how do I use that money to buy my way into building projects that I can sell within the organization or outside the organization? So that is what I'm like continuously thinking about. That's how my day or my week goes by.
Super. I think you covered pretty much right in terms of understanding, providing a uniform view to the organization about the initiatives and the outcomes that are coming in. Spend time in hiring and resources, long-term projects, and some of the examples that you gave, and also how you use real-time analytics or other techniques that we'll get into in a minute about forecasting. So various use cases. Thanks for that. I'd like to now introduce Kaushik De. Hey, Kaushik, if you can wave your hand and we know who. Great. Thanks for joining again, Kaushik. So Kaushik is head of data sciences and quantum AI at Ericsson Research, right? So Kaushik, we would, at the end of after this, please enlighten us a little bit about quantum AI, because I've been hearing this word some time now, but I'm sure you're the best person to help us understand this. But Kaushik heads the Ericsson's AI and ML research lab in India, and it works with a very experienced set of data professionals in emerging AI and ML techniques. So it's more on the cutting edge and research domain. Hopefully your work translates into something that Ericsson applies it in its products and portfolio. So Kaushik also has 11 international patents, and especially things in intelligent drone swarms. I think that's a fascinating part of it. So Kaushik, if you could also explain to us what does a day in your life look like, and also what is quantum AI? I'm now really curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the last part of the question is a tough one, because even I am still trying to grasp it and understand what a quantum AI can do for us.
Yeah.
It's a very new area, but nevertheless, I will try to illustrate it in a few words. So with respect to the day in the life, I have to confess that not 2 days are never the same. So if I have to describe what a day in the life goes, it will probably be kind of a average, which I can kind of take out that what I do in the first part of the day and what I do the second part of the day. But again, there are things which can totally upset your plan and you have to adjust to. And, that also brings me to the point that whenever we are doing something, the key is how do we adjust to unknown circumstances, how we adjust to situations, because things will never go to your plan. So how do you work around? How do you have a plan B?
Yeah.
So now coming to the day, the first part, what I generally try to do is that the first 2 hours, I generally try to keep it for research work. Something you are fresh, you are, your brain is probably at its best. And at that time, I try to do all the thinking, whatever in some project where I myself am personally involved, we try to work on something. It could be a prototype, it could be a patent, it could be, some algorithm or math. But basically, that's the time when I generally prefer to spend kind of pushing my brain the most. The next part of the day generally comes with, there are various research projects that are ongoing. So you have to generally review the research projects. And one of the things I think which you mentioned is very important, whether it's research or not, any work that you do, it must contribute to the overall strategy and the direction of the company. So ultimately, whatever research we are doing, even though it's long-term, it should contribute to the long-term goals of the company. So every research project that we do, we definitely track it. We also ensure that how we are aligned to the long-term goals of the business. And how are we doing with respect to the completion, it's like any other project that goes on. But of course, our timelines are much stressed. We have a longer horizon, so that way it's probably a little bit more flexible. Of course, then there is, you get into calls and meetings, which is for any of us, or rather every one of us, with stakeholders, where we discuss. It could be some technical stuff, it could be some project related stuff, it could be some, a funding issue, it could be an internal or an external meeting. But you need to do these meetings, and you need to kind of come out of this meeting with something which you wanted to have at this, or which you wanted to really have at the start of the meeting. So in every meeting, I generally try to set the goal that, okay, whom am I meeting with? What is that they want? What is that I want? And what do I want them to do? So that's how I try to drive these meetings. And then I think, as Shakti was mentioning, there will be interviews and things that you need to do throughout the day. Not every day, but maybe once a week or once in 2 weeks, you do the interview. Then there is also some strategy work. As part of any research activity, it's very important that as research unit leaders, we set the overall research strategy. And that research strategy, what you said, it has to be revisited based on multiple things. How are things evolving in the outside Ericsson, say outside my company? What are the new technologies that are evolving? What are the things that are kind of hitting a dead end? What are the things that I should invest more on? What are the things I should pass on to the industrialization units? So those are the things which is something that you have to regularly keep on revisiting. And that's more or less how the day goes. But the one thing that I generally try to make sure that, and of course, it doesn't happen every day, but as a good practice, I try to make sure I study something new, for 30 minutes or preferably 1 hour. It could be on anything. It could be on history, it could be on geography, it could be on ML, it could be on maths. But at least if you learn something new, you never know when that knowledge will actually come back and pay you back. So that's how I generally try to end my day.
Excellent. I think a good piece of advice there too for many of us. So essentially, when you're fresh, you start out, you work on some new initiatives, new prototype, new model, new algorithm, or anything to make best use of that horsepower in the morning, and get into meetings. And you're also, it looks like there is a lot of hiring going on, at least in data science and ML world, which is heartening to see in this situation. But that's good, and I'm sure you're looking for some really good folks out there.
Yes,
then
you
spend time on research strategy. We'll get to that in a minute. Later on, help us a little bit understand. When you say that strategy, who are the stakeholders? How do you work with? And what is it that, as audience here, need to know and need to understand to be able to lay that career path towards that, right? So in all your points that we are saying, we want to tie that back to our topic, to our theme here is career accelerators towards chief of data as a path, right? So folks who are already spent a considerable amount of time in data and data analytics and data scientist role, or even data science manager's role, what are the ways that we can get to that? So thanks for that, and I'll come back to you. Shivram, so it gives me great pleasure to invite you, Shivram, and introduce you. So Shivram is a co-founder and CEO of Curl Analytics. And we'll hear more about Curl Analytics from him in a minute. But it does fascinating work, especially research-based products, right? I think that's something that I would like to know more about what that means. But Shivram has got extensive work experience, hands-on experience in machine learning, robotics, and IoT. I believe you also have a research lab at home, Shivram, with a robotics lab. Is that still functioning, or was that something that you had passion and ran for some time, right? And again, Shivram is an advisor to government of AP, Odisha, government of India on emerging technologies. But what is really amazing is he is one of the most viewed Quora writers in machine learning, right? Many people may not know this, but he was the second most viewed writer in the world in 2017, 2018 on machine learning. So I actually spent some time. Thank you, Shivram, for doing that. I learned a lot with that nuggets of information that you're writing as short form articles in Quora and helping people answer people's questions. So welcome. And what I'd like you to spend a couple of minutes on is give us a quick view when you say you wanted Goel Analytics as a company to be the best research-based product company, right? And also where you spend most of your time as a data science practitioner as well as a CEO of a company.
Thanks, Sai, for that, and thanks for all the good words. As a CEO and I'm an entrepreneur, as a CEO, I have a lot of responsibilities, starting from hiring to planning out how we are going to take a product forward. So when we started Goel Analytics, we had this idea that India has so many talented people. It has a lot of talent, but what we lack is kind of motivation for a lot of people to work from here. We see many people going out of India and shining there. We wanted to create an opportunity here so that people can innovate here, build various things. And what I used to do was, I used to work in various companies, but I always used to feel that I can do a lot more. So I opened a lab in my house, started experimenting on robotics and various other things, 3D printing, deep learning. Deep learning was emerging then in 2014 and so on. So started doing all these things, and later found out that it's a great opportunity to start a company and tackle many of these problems. So during this journey, what I found out was what is needed today is the focus on technology and to encourage people to enter into these fields. And I initially started off taking some engineering students, allowing them to do projects in my lab and so on. Found out that many things, even students from second tier, third tier colleges could learn so much and progress so much. So I thought, why not start a company? And when we started it, I converted my current robotics lab into the drones lab, what we have now. So what we did was Goel Analytics is like a primordial soup where ideas are generated. We work on technologies such as machine learning, blockchain, and robotics, three primary areas. We feel these are the highly disruptive technology fields. And once we kind of create an idea which can become a product, we see whether the product has some potential or not. We take it to our clients, see whether someone is ready to buy it, does it have potential? If it has potential, we actually carve it out as a separate company and run it in an independent way. So this seems to be a different kind of model compared to various startups in today's world, but it has worked out for us. We have created three companies, one specializing on document data extraction. We are extracting data from commodity trading and trade finance documents, where we have created a JV with one of the top European firms. And this product called Sara has one of the top accuracies in the world in document data extraction today. And it's being used by multiple companies in Europe and US. So that is one part of it. And other part is on our drones. We have created a company there as well, and we are specializing on drone delivery. We are part of the latest release by DGCA, which opened up for drone delivery based experiments. And we were one of the first companies who got permissions to fly drones for drone delivery. So we are working with companies like Dunzo, Zomato, and kind of doing all these things. And we are also into algo trading. That was my profession earlier. I was an algo trader. I used to build trading strategies for various investment banks. And we have something called as Goel Capital, where we are developing algo trading strategies. So we are doing all this cutting edge work using machine learning and AI extensively throughout all our products and so on. So my day starts off with meetings, a lot of meetings. Since Curl Analytics works on so many products and ideas and so on, I have half an hour meetings for every product or team, and that goes on till afternoon. So continuously discussing with them, giving them ideas. People will come and say, this is not working, that is not working. I keep suggesting them ideas and so on. By the mid of the day, we have team meeting with at a board meeting kind of thing. We are a startup, so we can have board meetings every day. So we do that. We take strategic decisions as to how to hire, what is our strategy, and so on, and how do we move in a particular product and various other things. And as Kaushik was mentioning, we are also hiring a lot of people. There's a lot of demand for AI and ML today. After that, I also spend time in deep diving on specific problems where we are stuck, especially AI related problems. I also wear a hat of AI architect. So basically what I do is draw the entire block diagram of entire product and keep tweaking around it to make sure that the product is suitable. It is much more stable and scalable, as well as it is error prone. It doesn't have any errors, right? So I keep doing that, fine tuning the models and so on. And by the end of the day, when everything is over, I spend time reading papers and experimenting with new AI models, because AI field is changing so fast. There is a new research paper coming out every day, and that
keep
can
up
be useful in our
the pace with what's going on in the world is very important to do that.
Yeah. So this is how I end my day.
Awesome. Thank you, all of you, for that insight into how does your day look like approximately. Every day is different, as Kaushik was saying. But one of the things that keeps coming up, and I also want to check from the audience about what they understand this is. We have these titles. Earlier this used to be a confusion with in products, but now we have Chief Data Officer, Chief Analytics Officer, Head of Data Science, all of these things. So I would like you to peel a little bit, and is there a difference, or is this just a function of the organization, or essentially are there any differences in this, right? But before we go and get quick perspectives from you, I'd like to poll the audience on this to say, just to see what their understanding of these titles that we see, right? Especially leadership roles in data, right? And these are also emerging slowly in India. And I think we need more voting, guys. Looks like, yeah, I think I can imagine that people might take a few seconds to even make up their mind, because it's also a complex set of titles that are there. So as we see, I'd like to go to Shakti to get your perspective, demystify this for us, to say, is there any difference when we say Chief Data Officer, Chief Analytics Officer, or Head of Data Science, all the data leadership titles that you see?
So the answer to that, Satish, would be based on your own experience and what you've seen in the industry.
Yes.
In my experience, I would say that Chief Data Officer and Chief Analytics Officer, these are the two titles that go together. And earlier, they would fall under the domain of a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, who would be responsible for data. But now the data volume and the velocity with which it comes to you, that has grown so much that the companies have decided to create new CXO positions of a CDO, CAO, or CDAO. Now, as far as the Chief Digital Officer is concerned, that role I think is slightly different. The main responsibility of a digital officer is to take the organization, the company, on a digital journey. So, like when I was working with Akash Digital, a lot of our documents, a lot of our processes were analog based. I mean, in the sense that there was a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of bureaucracy involved, and the processes would just move at the snail's pace, right? So all that information. So now, how can I digitize all that information? How can I take all my processes online, right? If I want to take an exam, I don't need to come into the center. Can I take it online?
So the digital officer is a very different role, not very related to the
yeah,
data.
I would say that it's a very different role. And if you like look at the career progression, you would start as a chief data officer, and your responsibility would be to just provide a uniform view of data. Then you would move into the analytics space, and you over there you have to be a domain expert. If you are, for example, if you are in the health insurance industry, you need to understand what the definition of bed days is. Bed days is for how many days was the patient in the hospital, right? So all that domain information is needed. If you need to understand what the company considers sales as, what is revenue, what is a forward-looking booking, things like that. That is something where you start learning and you become a CDAO. At the same time, if you have a strong technology background, then the company might consider you to do a lot of digital work. And finally, you become a business leader when you start monetizing data. When you start building products and you start selling them, and instead of being a cost center, now you become a profit center. That is the journey how I see. Now, as far as the head of data science is concerned, see, if you are in an investment bank, right, the head of data science would be generally a chief quant officer. Like that person would be a PhD in mathematics, physics, or applied statistics. And then they would be using a lot of mathematical algorithms to come up with a trading strategy.
Interesting.
So like they need to have a very solid understanding of math. At the same time, they would like to see what the trends in data are. They would like to do a lot of data mining and then combine it together. So there the role would be different.
So are you saying that, yes, there are different, they are different, the titles, somewhat similar, but of course we will not talk about the digital officer part of it, but within the data officer, analytics, and head of data science, are you saying that the role also, the emphasis on the role varies differently with the industry or with the type of business? The example that you gave is financial industry. The head of data science or the data analytics officer is a lot more quant person as opposed to more from the business perspective. But to all of folks do really need to know and understand key business aspects of it, right? Essentially, it's a leadership role in an organization.
Yes, that's right. So I guess a quant person need not be a technology person. A quant person need not know that how ETL works. What is data cleansing? Like how do I optimize SQL queries? But a chief data officer who has to provide a uniform view of data, and is building a data warehouse, they have to worry about ETL processes, transformation of data, cleansing of data, and then designing the system in such a way that your queries run in seconds or like milliseconds. So that's where a lot of technology information is needed. But one thing that's common is that everyone should have a strong sense of business. They should see data as corporate currency, money, and you need to have strong leadership skills. That the thing is that if you're a chief data officer, right, that is a very disruptive role. You are working with a lot of business stakeholders who have been making decisions based on their gut feelings, based on their business heuristics, based on their experience, but not based on data. So that is what you are disrupting. And the company has to throw all its weight behind you if you have to be successful in your job. So you have to plow through a lot of corporate culture in this case.
So thanks for that. I think, one of the things that we would want to do, at least in the context of this discussion, is when we talk about career accelerators to leadership roles, right? Especially in the data part of it. I would like us to look at it from two angles. I don't know if you agree with it, but one is from a skill sets point of view. The other one is role and responsibility point of view, right? Now, the skill sets could be from data skills, technical skills, or non-data skills. And I would like to understand, I'm sure audience is curious about knowing what are these skill sets are, right? And Kaushik, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Your video was off, so I didn't know whether you were on. So if you could take that question around, what kind of skill sets do you think is really important? And that's one point of view that we want to look at from data and non-data skills point of view.
And when you ask this question, do you specifically mean research or do you also mean product development?
Product and research. So both, especially to leadership roles in the data that we talked about, right? So, the heads of data science or CDO or CEO, where there is also a lot of business component and business understanding that is required, because now you are impacting business outcomes, right? Research definitely will need that, which will feed it into the commercial portfolios of the companies, right? The products. So you can provide your research perspective into this, and then we can get the other perspectives from
Yeah,
panelists.
sure. Or maybe I will start wearing my previous hat on, where I was the head of a product development unit, and where the role was to lead the analytics and the data science for that business unit. So, as Shakti said, that the world is evolving, and as data becomes more and more important, what's happening is the question of entire data governance is coming. The question about who owns the data. That's very critical, because when you want to do something, be it a data science or a data engineering work, access to data is very important. Who owns the data, who can change the data, the entire data strategy kind of evolves from that point. And then there is the platform strategy. The platform strategy is also something where the chief data officer, or whatever the name be of that person, he plays a very important role. What is the plan? Or do you want to go on the open source? Or even if you want to go on the open source, what are the kind of technologies that you want to go for? So these are the very important questions to solve from an organizational level, because you do not want one unit working on a certain set of technologies and the other unit working on completely different set of, say, proprietary technologies. Of course, people can argue that that's fine, but when you bring those two products together, there are some challenges of integration. And so from the overall perspective, both the data and the platform strategy has to be decided. Now when we come to the say, for example, the skills part. So what is required? Number one is definitely the understanding of the business. That's paramount. There are two ways you can grow understanding of the business. One is you work through the business, you work in the business, you gain the understanding of the business. Then you come into the data and the data engineering and the data science area. You get the understanding of the data science domain, and then you come into these leadership roles in data science. The other way to do it is also, say, for example, you were primarily a very quant type of person, as Shakti was describing it. You were always in algorithms, or you were writing, some Spark jobs or something like that. And then you happen to also get a role where you were trying to evolve some use cases, or you were trying to evolve some, the ROI statements from each of the use cases. So essentially, you worked a lot with business, and you got an understanding of the business. You worked with customers. You got an understanding of the business, and then you moved into this data science. So both these paths are fine. Both these paths are optimal. They will work out, and according to the circumstances, one has to choose his own path.
Right. So one can come from the business experience, but still get into the data science part of it, understand enough, have a working knowledge of various aspects of data science or data engineering and analytics, and still take that path. Or somebody who has spent considerable amount of time in end-to-end data science project, starting to now manage both the projects as well as the team, and become the bridge between the business leadership and this and that. That's a path that one can take. So these are the two paths that you believe.
That is true. Even though I would probably prefer, the later part, where you first start with on the technical track, and then you slowly get an understanding of the business. The only advantage you carry in that way is that you actually can understand the code, you understand the design. And if you come from the other way around, it is definitely possible, but it actually takes time to kind of imbibe that knowledge of technology. And that's very important, because unless you have a very good understanding of what is happening on the ground, it is very difficult to really think that what is possible and what is not possible. I'll put it very simply, as simple as that. Unless you understand the maths of the data science, we can talk a lot about it, but when you are actually developing your product features, it will be slightly difficult for you to conceptualize that whether what I am saying, is it possible? how much effort it entails, and what will be the result. So it has certain advantages. And
So,
then, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, and then if I take this question to research, then certainly you should be coming from a very good quant background. You should understand the technology. You should understand the maths and the science of it. And then, of course, you also need to understand the business, because if you look at any research leaders, across the world, say, be it in the Googles or the Microsofts of the world, they understand the business very well. Unless you understand the business, you will, of course, you can dabble, you can do great in fundamental research, but then when it comes to putting together that fundamental research to business context, you will find some challenges. So if you have to be a research leader, you have to not only understand the technology and the business side of it, but also you have to get some good understanding. The technology side of it, but also get it.
Right. That can become a little bit challenging sometimes for researchers from somebody from research background. So Shivram, just to get a little bit deeper into the skills that both Kaushik and Shakti explained, from your perspective, what do you think are the non-data skills? I'm sure there are lots of data related skill sets that are required, right? We talked about stats, analytics, and machine learning models, enough understanding, not necessarily an expert in any of them, but specifically around non-data skills, let's say around leadership skills or people management, or even understanding customer context, right? So Kaushik talked a lot about business context, and is how important is customer context in all these things. So, as being an entrepreneur, I'm sure you are obsessed about understanding your customer and what problems they to solve. So you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you. So as you were saying, Sai, it is very important for a leader in this field to have technical skills like machine learning, statistical, quant skills, and so on. I am also from the same field, so I can relate to that. But the only thing is, what I also believe, what is much more important to be in this field and to kind of build products is there are other soft skills which are required. Okay, so one of the things what I feel is in any field, it's not just in data science. This can be applicable to other things as well. You need to have a lot of determination and passion in what you build, right? So this applies to various fields, not just this field. And through passion, you get all these understanding of the customer related things. So once when you are building a product, as a technologist, what mistakes we do and what mistakes I've done personally is to go too much into the maths of it. To go too much into the derivations, maths, and some new model may be much more complicated and all those things. It may look very fancy. And when I start using it, it may, because of the various non-linearities it has or the complexities it has, it may give substandard results in certain cases, certain edge cases. And that can be very critical for the customer. And so what we also know is customers are more happy with the UI than the backend, right? All the AI things we are building. So this keeps happening. And so we need to understand all the things what we are using should basically make the end customer's job time easy. Like, probably for example, in the document data extraction, right? So our aim is not to build the entire document data extraction out of a single deep learning model. No, we want to do it in such a way that first thing is it is also not advisable to do that because from the data science perspective as well. And the second thing is we also want to make sure that we are able to kind of inject certain things where customer wants some kind of rendering, want to change some text into some other text when it comes, right? And it's better done through a normal programming than an ML model. And you need to figure that out. You need to have that kind of intuition that when should I use ML, when should you not use
So
it?
the ability to say no to data science is also very critical, right?
Very, very important. That is one skill.
Yeah, to a person wielding a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. And one more thing is, it's more about common sense. If you see machine learning today, these are the best models. Models are basically neural network based things where you keep adding layers, right? And all of it. And if you see the best papers which are coming out today, you can explain it to a small kid. You can take a 10 standard person and you can say, see, this is the basic concepts of it. This is the basic concept of it. Yes, the maths is complicated. Yes, the optimization is complicated and so on. But to intuitively understand it, a 10 standard student can understand what's going on inside the model. And once you get that kind of perspective on when to use more data, when to use less data, what kind of data is required, that is when you will have an effective chief data officer or someone who can understand, okay, these are the things I need. And so I need to prepare the data this way. I need to collect the data this way. Before even building the model, you know, okay, I need to do this. And
so after you have that, sorry, just to, I think before we lose that train of thought, now, once you do all that, what about telling that story to your stakeholders? So isn't that a very critical component?
So
otherwise you're lost.
Let me tell you a story, a small story. So basically, this is what is happening now. So my job for today and tomorrow is to kind of create a dumbed down version of what we are doing in an illustrative way, like using cartoons and stuff, to show what is happening in the model without telling the IP of it, right? Because we can't give out the IP of exactly what is happening. Maybe we are using 3 deep learning models in a particular thing. But what we need to show them is your data is secure. We are not mining your data. Maybe that is their, like, you know, the customers don't want you to mine their data, share their data. Or they may be thinking that some voodoo magic is happening and they'll get 100% accuracy, right? We need to instruct them and tell them in a story-like way that, okay, this is what can happen and this is what cannot happen, okay? So over time, models can improve, and over time, you may go closer to 100%. You will never reach probably 100%. You can go closer to it, and this is how it would happen. So you need to have that storytelling capabilities, right? So these are all the soft skills, leadership skills, like, you know, common sense. Common sense is very important.
So I think ability to stand up, tell a compelling story, either using your data visualization or come up with ways to convince your customers, your business stakeholders, even your own data teams. Sometimes that is absolutely required. So that's a very important aspect that you're. So since we're talking about career anchors and what helps people to move into leadership roles, so I'd like to touch upon something on domain understanding and experience to all three of you. Before we go there, I want to check from the audience to see if you know, what do they have clarity, and you know, maybe after this discussion or even before the discussion, or clear understanding of what might trigger their promotions in their organizations. It's a very simple but very, very important question to have an answer to, right? Do I have an understanding of how I can grow my career within the organization that I am in? Now, of course, it's a choice that you can make to go out of it. But if you can have that poll to quickly bring up and see if what the audience thinks around whether, you know, and we are talking especially in terms of a career path, if you will, from a data science leader role, data science manager role into leadership roles, right? So otherwise the career accelerators that we are talking about are very important, right? So hopefully some of us can use that to make that change happen in the organization. Now, while that happens, one quick question, because all three of you represent and come from quite different industries and solving different problems in the industry. Is a good understanding of domain and having domain experience important to become a data science leader? So I'd like you know, Kaushik to take this first, if you will. You're on mute, Kaushik.
Sorry about that. Audible now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So first of all, you know, it depends. Of course, the answer is yes. You, without understanding the domain, you cannot apply data science. You don't know which variable does what is the influence of each of the predictors, and you know, if I look at even a basic linear regression model, unless you know exactly what you're doing, you don't know. I mean, if you are building a simple model on fraud, if you don't know, if you cannot relate to each of the predictors, you don't know that, you can't say anything about the model that you are doing. So without any doubt, the understanding of business is important.
Great.
So, but that leads us to the question, which even, I used to think often, that if I want to work in a new domain where probably my knowledge is limited,
I think that's probably where the questions are also coming from, saying that, look, I've been in this insurance company for 10 years, but that e-commerce thing is so exciting to me and I want to move to that. I think I have necessary technical skills though. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Yeah. See, it all depends on, I think Shivram was talking about passion, right? So there is no more powerful tool in the world than passion. Of course, that passion has to be accompanied by perseverance. So if you have the perseverance to continue, if you have the perseverance, then there is it's very few things are actually impossible.
Great.
I mean, say for example, when you are going to a new domain, what happens? You have to learn that how that domain works.
Right. I think this, consultants are very good at this, right? I mean, they spend, dedicated few days or even few weeks to really read reports, understand how the industry works, and get enough knowledge and understanding of how that industry operates, just so you can have good conversation and bring a point of view. Now, of course, we need a lot more than that if you actually are creating models that will impact outcomes from a business perspective. But you're saying it is absolutely possible. It's not going to be easy, but doable, right? But preferably the I think, I'm trying to paraphrase what you're saying is domain understanding and experience is absolutely required, whatever domain it is. But if you already spent few years in that, see how you can pick up. So
yes, at the same time, what I would just add, and maybe 10 seconds, is that if I am, say, for example, hiring somebody in research, and if he doesn't have a telecom background or a network domain, but if he is an excellent person with respect to his machine learning and the core data science skills, I will hire him.
You wouldn't
because
hesitate.
I know that he will be able to cope up and he will be able to.
So I think that's a good way of summarizing that. Shakti, do you also think that domain knowledge, domain understanding is significantly beneficial? I wouldn't say mandatory, but
I would 100% agree with Kaushik and you on that. Domain knowledge is an absolute must. See, I have had a chance to work both as a technologist and as a data officer, data scientist, and I can say that while technology is domain agnostic, you can move from one domain to another and you can build the same J2E application. As far as data is concerned, data always comes with business meaning. So you have to understand how the business operates. So I'll give you an instance of one project I worked on. It was for a company called Profit Logic, which eventually was acquired by Oracle. And that was in the merchandise price optimization space in US. And basically what the company did was that using Bayesian statistics model, it would determine the price at which the item should be sold by the chains, like chains like Home Depot, Sears, Macy's, Toys R Us, right? So there were quite a few things that a person needed to know before they could apply the Bayesian statistics. You would need to know what is landing date. Landing date is the date when the merchandise arrives. What is the out date? Where it has to be absolutely out of the warehouse. You have the landing date and the out date, and then you have a seasonality in there. Like you have to understand whether
you have to understand what variable impacts what of the business.
All the input parameters are needed, and input parameters are nothing else but
domain
business attributes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there is a clear consensus on that. So just a couple of minutes, I want to take few of the we've been answering several questions that are already asked by the audience, but specifically I think there are 2-3 questions that I want to quickly touch upon in next 3 minutes, right? So Puneet asks to Shakti specifically about, how can, data science team or an organization deal with a cross-functional organization? Is there a challenge there that you see, or is this more of a top-down mandate organization structural issue that you see?
Okay, thanks, Puneet. Data science projects, they are always cross-functional. If they're not cross-functional, then they're purely academic, right? So you have to work with a business stakeholder. So, I mean, for instance, at Travel Boutique Online, we have developed a forecasting algorithm, which is like based on LSTM, which is long short-term memory model, which is a variant of like recurrent neural networks. And what that model does is it basically forecasts sales at least 3 or 4 months in advance for different markets like Brazil, like Middle East, Asia Pacific. Now our business stakeholders look at these predictions on a daily basis, and then they adjust the hotel prices, the airlines prices, so as to optimize the revenue.
Amazing.
Right?
I think that's a great example of how to do that. Yeah. So you're saying that it cannot be siloed. It has to be cross-functional, driven by business needs, and that's the only way it can work. Right. Excellent.
That is if you're working in an industry. If it's if it's like a purely research-based institution, for example, if you're working for IBM and they may have a data science team, they may be more interested in writing research papers, and that's the time where I think can work in silo, but in a regular industry, no.
Great. So Shivram, quickly, Vikrant asks you, can a career in operations research help in the analytics field? So quick, 30 seconds or 1 minute, if you can.
So surely it will work. It will help in AI field, because if you think about machine learning is all about optimization. You're trying to find optima, minima or maxima based on what your objective function is, based on the problem. So you take a problem and you see what you want to achieve. There is a goal, target, which you want to achieve. And to achieve that target, you tune the parameters inside the model. And for tuning, you use optimization. And even in operation research, you do that, right? So a lot of these mathematical skills, what you learn there, and the programming skills, what you run there, are used.
Beneficial.
But what machine learning can do is solve much more complicated problems.
Right? But that background really helps, is what you're saying. It's not an orthogonal thing. So, great, awesome. So Kaushik, I won't let you go without giving a 30-second understanding of quantum AI. So if you can just, I'm sorry to put you in the spot, but I'm sure a lot of people would want that understanding.
No, that's fine. I love doing it. Yes. I mean, it's just that the 30 seconds is a challenge, but I'll try to deal with it. Yeah. So when we look at quantum, the fundamentally why quantum is different, because we all came to know that, anything is represented by 0 and 1 computer. So when quantum came, they said that, well, it's not the case.
Yeah.
What you will see is that in quantum, there are many states between 0 and 1, what we call as entanglement. There is a classic, if I say like quantum for dummies kind of video, it's like a 10-minute video by IBM. It says that when you do heads and tails, you will get 50% heads and 50% tails. So if you and me are competing, you will win 50% of the time and I will 50% of the time. But if you are playing against a quantum computer, they showed that it can win about 97 or 98% of the time. The 2% of the time it loses, it's because there are some malfunctions in the quantum computer. So firstly, how does it do that? It does that through that explosion of states. This qubits, what we call it, there can be n number of states between 0 and 1. And due to that, the overall computation speeds can be increased. Now, how does it help? The computation speeds increasing. Think of a reinforcement learning algorithm where you are exploring a huge number of state space, a very large state space. Often what we do in today's reinforcement learning is we actually define, okay, these are the state spaces of interest. We could limit the exploration, and thereby we could probably limit the problem to a certain extent. But when you use quantum, what you could do, you could explore as much as you wish.
Yeah.
Or look, for example, the NP hard problems that we have. Say, for example, the channel prediction or the other problems. There, it will take probably years to solve some of those NP hard problems. Not all, if you are using the classical techniques. But using the quantum techniques, you can probably solve it in probably a few minutes, if not a few minutes, maybe half an hour.
Fascinating.
But again, the catch is that is still probably the commercial implementation of that is probably about 5 years down the line.
No, but from a possibilities point of view itself, it's quite exciting. Well, I think we have to wrap that up, and really thank you so much for joining the session and providing those insights.